Hello, everyone. I'm Allison, and you are listening to Play It Forward on WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Alongside of me is my co-host and fellow advocate of Play It Forward, Kurt Hall. Momentarily, we will introduce our guests, Henry and Wendy Winter. But for now, let's pass the mic to Kurt for a closer look at what Play It Forward is all about.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. The Play It Forward Project is a nonprofit that raises awareness, educates, and advocates for the fentanyl opioid crisis with a focus on prevention and recovery through peer-to-peer advocacy. On our show, we bring in guests from the field of addiction, people in recovery, and more. We discuss illicit drugs, fentanyl, and substance use disorder, and towards 2 p.m., we shout out some welcoming and accessible resources. We broadcast from the Stony Brook University radio station live every other Friday from 1 to 2 p.m., and we are now live streaming our previous episodes on Spotify under Play It Forward and on our YouTube channel at the Play It Forward Project, where you can listen to our previous shows on the go. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. Give us a like, give us a review, ask some questions if you feel up to it. And here are a few facts about fentanyl. Fentanyl is a highly potent synthetic opioid that is 30 to 50 times stronger than heroin. As little as 2 milligrams of fentanyl has been killing many people every day. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is just enough to cover Abraham Lincoln's nose on a penny. This deadly opioid kills one person on average every 11 minutes or over 200 lives each day, making it the leading cause of death for adults ages 18 to 45. Those statistics are similar to a commercial jet crashing every single day. Without further ado, here is Allison to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Kurt. Our guests today are Henry and Wendy Winter. They are from Maryland and tragically lost their son Seth to fentanyl poisoning in 2020, just 2 months shy of his 21st birthday. They have turned their pain into purpose and started the Seth J. Winter Memorial Foundation, which provides scholarships for young adults recovering from substance use disorders, either drugs or alcohol, intended to be used towards furthering oneself in a positive educational direction. So on behalf of Play It Forward, I'd like to warmly welcome you both, Wendy and Henry Winter, and we are so sorry for the loss of your beautiful boy. So why don't you tell our listeners maybe a little bit about yourselves and, of course, about Seth.
Okay, well, first of all, this is Wendy, and I want to say thank you for having us on the show. It's a pleasure to be here, and we love what you guys are doing. So we're happy to be part of this podcast and part of the community to help folks who are in the recovery process and just to be supportive in terms of taking away the stigma that's oftentimes, many times, associated with substance use disorder. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Maryland, and we still live in Maryland, and that's where we raised our son, Seth. And we also have 2 other daughters who are in college right now. So we had quite a lively household for many, many years, and the girls are still around, but, in and out of the house and busy doing their thing. And, we both work full time and have larger extended families and are part of several different communities. And this is just one of the communities that we're a part of. Henry, do you want to say something?
Sure. My name is Henry. I'm originally from the New York area, born in Long Island, but I've lived here for more than half of my life.
Little Long Island accent there.
Coffee,
yes. So I've lived in Maryland for more than half of my life, and I'm going to be honest, I probably call Maryland my home now, as opposed to New York, but I do have a lot of family and friends back home. As Wendy said, very active, lively, sometimes very chaotic family. Sporting events, swim meets, just everything with kids that you can imagine. And I'm very active on certain groups. I used to be very active in Nar-Anon, not so much anymore, but I'm part of the some fentanyl group on Facebook, maybe Fentanyl Lives Matter, obviously this. And as Wendy said, I think my goal is to break the stigma and just be a support for others, whether it's the parents that have lost the child, or if it's for the person that's in recovery to
Mm,
help with education. And I do really believe doing our foundation has really turned the pain into purpose
mm.
and sometimes maybe borderline passion.
That's great. And I've heard so many parents that have unfortunately lost their children speak about turning that pain into purpose and how that's a real pivotal moment for them when they realize that they aren't necessarily carrying that pain, still the memory, obviously. I'm sure you guys still have hard days, but that you really have a sense of purpose now. And that's to, help other parents who are grieving or, like you said, those that are struggling with substance use. Can you tell us a little bit about Seth and a little bit of his story?
Oh yeah, we could
And
we
we'll
could
have
talk for days
I'm
about
sure.
that one.
The good, the
Yeah.
bad, and the ugly.
That's right. Well, starting from when he was first came into this world, he was just a real joy, a bundle of energy, just physically a very beautiful child. He had these great big blonde curls and blue eyes and these big full cheeks and his energy. He'd come into that room and everybody would notice him and he'd talk to people. He was the first of our three kids, but he was really the most talkative and so engaging from the get-go. And as the first of 6 grandchildren, my sister and brother-in-law also have 3 children. I mean, he was just like the cat's meow.
Of course.
Yeah, so he was very adventurous, and as a kid and as a young adult, he loved being in the ocean. He knew how to skimboard. He
Nice.
tried to surf, but he wasn't really so good at that. He loved skateboarding. He loved bouncing on trampolines and playing sports, and there was so much physical energy everywhere all the time with him. And I became one of those moms who was a regular in the ER room with broken this, scraped up leg. And I became very good at sort of managing that whole process because it was part of what he did because he was so adventurous. He was bound to hurt himself. And really just that thread from when he was little of connecting with people was so true his whole life. That was him at the core. Like the goodness of him was wanting to look out for other people and have them connect. And I have so many people that have told me different stories about that piece about him. And that's really something I'm proud of because, he would help his friends when they were down and out and was always inviting friends over. I was constantly feeding kids. It was like, they're in and out of my kitchen, in and out of my house all the time with him. And then to kind of shift, and he was very funny, very, very funny, like sometimes really inappropriate funny.
Sometimes that's the best funny.
You
Yes.
couldn't help but laugh. You couldn't help but laugh because it was like, oh my gosh, he's spot on. But then shifting to the piece about him getting into using substances started with marijuana, I'd say by the end of 8th grade, going into 9th grade. So it was
That's such a dangerous time. I have a 12-year-old he's going into 8th grade and hearing the stories that he tells me, he's very open, but hearing the stories, that seems to be the shift of things, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a prime age, I think. And so he started getting into some use then. Of course, it slowly shifted to more kind of hard to remember all the details at this point.
Yeah.
It's not really important other than it became a significant part of who he was in his story because he had some traumatic things happen to him. He lost actually 3 friends. He lost one as a child and then 2 or one like in high school and another one as a young adult. He was a highly sensitive person. So like he walked around with this inside of him.
Yeah.
He was not just one to let that go.
Did he lose, if you don't mind my asking, to substance use or other things?
No.
That's fine. You don't have to disclose. I was just curious.
Yeah. One person, there were substances involved. The other 2, there were not. I mean, one was literally a young man who drowned. So that was not related. But kind of built into his story and some of the deep sorrow he walked around with.
Yeah, carrying
and
those
so
losses.
I think I say that just to share that like some of that definitely played into what happened as he got older. And he was not college bound. He was a smart guy, but school was very hard for him. He had ADHD and he found many things very boring. So he was kind of trying to figure out what he was going to do, and slowly started using other substances, pills. Sometimes it was true medication from a doctor, and then other times we know that it clearly was not.
Were you guys able to see the shift when it became, when it goes from being kind of the fun experimenting to the
Coping.
reliance upon? Were you guys aware of that, or?
I think we were pretty well aware. I mean, I don't want to say we were 100% aware, because who can
Yeah.
be? Only the person using truly knows it. But I remember Henry and I talked a lot, trying to figure out exactly what you said. Wait a minute, is this just like teenage experimentation, or have we shifted into this is dangerous?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, by 10th grade, we decided it had become dangerous, and we sent him to the first rehab place.
Okay.
And we sent him to several over the years, several. And then as he got older, of course, when they turn 18,
No.
you can't just send them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need to agree to go. And we got him to agree to go several times.
Was he willing when he was younger?
No, no. We used intervention service,
Okay.
and I joke around about that, where I had to have three thugs in my home at 2:00 to 3 in the morning, and it's really like that is not something as a parent you
Can you
want to do.
describe?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. So sure. So what happened was before we sent him away to a residential treatment at age 16, he was in an outpatient, I'd bring him a few times a week to this place in Maryland. And they said, they recommended
Inpatient.
he needs
A higher level
he
of
needs
care.
a higher level of care.
Yeah.
Okay, so Seth was tall and he was big and he was strong and had quite a force of energy when he was mad. And so Henry and I said, there's no way he and I are going to get him to be able to say, okay, I'll go. So they told us that there is a service where you can hire individuals to come into your home and basically take your child, because he was under the age of 18, to the facility you want to take him to. So they came into our house. It was a surprise. He was sleeping. We had to get out of the house while they were doing this. And then they took his cell phone, and we had a bag packed for him, and they took him on the plane.
It must have been so tough to make that decision.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
agonizing.
Good.
Yeah.
I have heard of this. I'm
Absolutely
sorry.
agonizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was at 16?
That was at 16,
Yeah.
and it was, I think it was the week after Thanksgiving. So it was kind of really hard, like sitting there and eating dinner, knowing in 7 days we're going to have an intervention service in our home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And we couldn't tell anybody. Not
Right.
just Henry and I knew. We couldn't tell anybody because we didn't want anybody to leak that this was
Yeah, of course.
happening. So
Right.
my advice to other parents is if you don't have to go that route, don't do it. But if you feel in your gut your child really needs help, then you'll do what you need to do to get your child help.
Mm-hmm. And so how long was he in that treatment facility for?
He was there from, I would say, end of November to maybe middle of January.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a little bit of time.
A little bit of time. It was in a really rural area of Louisiana,
Okay.
very rural area of Louisiana, with a bunch of teenagers that were the same. And I think he was really shocked, like, oh my God, how can my mom and dad had me kidnapped?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, I have heard about this. I apologize. I didn't realize that how you put it, that's what you were speaking of.
Well, so the proper word is
Oh,
not
no.
thugs, and I do apologize for being
I'm
politically
sure that's
Okay.
what it
correct.
felt like.
It's supposed to be an
Yeah.
intervention service.
So he comes back in the middle of January, and are things better? Do you feel like things are
Yeah, we
going in the
felt
right
like
direction?
for a while we felt like things are better, but then we also decided to have him switch schools.
Okay.
So that did not go over well with him.
Was it the crowd he was hanging out with at this particular school he was currently in?
Oh, it was definitely
Yeah.
the crowd he was hanging out with where many of the kids, I would say, were smoking weed. And we thought, and, based on advice we were given, that switching schools would be a good idea, put him in a different environment. So we switched him to another school about a half an hour away. And he was resistant, didn't want to go. And as we all know, there are drugs everywhere.
We'll find what we're looking for, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was not a successful effort for him, but he also really didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of a double negative on that one.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No, I was going to add something. As Wendy said, he was a very caring kid, and one of the things that sometimes in hindsight, I try to figure out, okay, did I miss something, or what was the trigger or whatever it was. And I think the fact that he was a really caring kid. There was a local kid in a car accident in 14 that was due to the drugs and alcohol, and I think because either he felt like he needed friends, or he felt bad about what happened. Like he just gravitated to that cluster of kids. And so I kind of thought that maybe that wasn't the beginning, but I kind of thought that was the start
He
of
had
the
a lot of
shift.
empathy, it sounds like.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking back, he was maybe 6 or 7. We had a goldfish that died. And I mean, he just went like bawling from it. So he was very emotional as a kid. So as Wendy said, he definitely bottled it up.
Something that I've noticed, and I'll speak for myself as well, is always feeling a lot, and not knowing how to deal with those feelings was really difficult. And I think that for myself, the drugs and the alcohol kind of turned everything down a little bit, and it makes you feel a little bit less, and sometimes it's just easier to cope that way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason many young people end up turning to drugs, because they're overwhelmed by their own feelings. I'm a very sensitive person as well, and so I can understand where you're coming from. You kind of take on other people's feelings, and it's really kind of a recipe that's, difficult to navigate, but nevertheless, it is one of the reasons that you don't want to feel so much, especially
Right.
when
And
you're
then
younger.
I was going to say something too, at 15, 16, 17, it's really hard consciously to change your people, places, and things.
Yeah.
Right. Because even as an adult, we do things that maybe we shouldn't be eating, whatever it is. It's really hard to change something. And I think, with all the peer pressure and everything as a teenager, it's just, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but that's a really hard thing it's a hard ladder to climb.
For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So now this went on for a few years. I'm sure this kind of in and out of different facilities, and you guys pulling your hair out going, what do we do here?
Yeah.
Can you take us towards the kind of the end, if you will?
So it's not really the end. I mean, I think we were kind of to the point of, it was Thanksgiving when he was 18. He wrecked my car again. And I was like, okay, he's got to go. This is bad for us. It's toxic for everybody. And we found him an apartment to live in, or a room somewhere. That didn't go over well. And so I think he was an 18-year-old kid, but because of the drugs, and I don't know at 18 if it was, hardcore yet. So I'm not going to say that, but I think it was 18 with maybe the maturity level of a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And you can't have an 18-year-old living by themselves and try to be mature. So Seth overdosed in February of 20. At first, he was very reluctant to go to treatment. Somebody talked him into it. I don't know who. And we sent him to a place in Beverly Hills that he actually liked. I mean, he was, when you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember him raving about the
Are you talking
food,
California?
the
Mhm.
environment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was
We didn't want him to be able to get home so quickly and easily.
yeah, and it was a famous actress's residence. Do you remember?
Well, I don't think you should say the name
Okay.
of it specifically, but yeah, he was in California and then COVID hit in March of 2020 and he flipped out. He's like, I can't do this. The technicians are talking about this thing going on and they're going to shut everything down and I won't be able to get back home. In my head,
Yeah.
I'm going, yay,
Right.
good,
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, if I had to drive out there
Yeah.
and get him, I would have done it. Like there would be a way home. It would have been a pain in the neck and long. He totally flipped out and he's like, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. I'm not doing it. And he came home. And it was the biggest mistake because then he overdosed again when he came home. And then 2 weeks later was the third time. And I don't want to say it was the charm because that's what
Right.
killed him
Mhm.
in April of 2020. And I so wished he had stayed there. But I also realized there was nothing I was going to do that was going to stop him from coming home. He was a smart kid. He figured out, what to do kind of thing.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember.
So that's the end. That's the short version of the end of the
Of course.
story.
Right.
Of course,
I do
yeah.
remember him saying because there were no more meetings here, everything got shut down, no one's coming in, and he felt isolated. And as a kid, he always struggled with being alone and not being able to do things by himself. And
Mhm.
and he just was bad at coping.
And
Yeah.
I want to talk more about that isolation that so many people in recovery struggled with during the pandemic and stuff. But we are actually at our mid wrap right now. So I would like to thank you for joining us for the first half of our show. Play It Forward. We appreciate your support and hope you'll stay tuned for the second half of the show. Tune into our show every other Friday here on WUSB.FM or on 90.1, 107.3 FM from 1 to 2 p.m. And please don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram at sbu.playitforward.
And I want to just thank our listeners for tuning in. And thank you again, Henry and Wendy Winter. We are going to be playing a special song for Seth. And would you like to introduce it, Wendy?
So Seth really liked rap music, and one of his favorite artists was Drake. And so there's one song called I'm So Proud of You. And actually,
Yeah.
one of my daughters recommended it as a song, to remember Seth by. And she said it makes her think of him as well. So I thought that would be an appropriate one to mention.
Perfect. Well, this is for Seth. Make Me Proud by Drake. We will be right back with our special guests, Henry and Wendy Winter. You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Play It Forward. I'm Allison with WUSB Stony Brook. I'm happy to have Henry and Wendy Winter with us today. They are bravely and courageously sharing their story about the loss of their beautiful son, Seth. And we were just talking about him, and we're going to pick up right where we left off.
And where we left off was talking about the isolation that he struggled with, which I think is such an important piece for people that are in recovery and just for people to hear in general about the need for community, the need for that support system, support network that unfortunately a lot of people struggled with not having during the pandemic, during the shutdown and stuff. And it sounds like Seth was struggling with that as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We when he was returning from California, we said to him he needed to be enrolled in an outpatient program as part of the stipulation for us helping him financially.
Mm-hmm.
And so he agreed to do that. But again, everything was virtual, nothing was in person. They weren't even doing urine testing analysis at that time because everything was shut down. So it's really, really poor timing in terms of that. I mean, he had some friends in recovery here in Maryland that were there, around to support him, but not in a moment to moment basis the way you need it when you're first coming out.
How did this affect your daughters? Well, I mean, leading up to this, because my brother went through this, and I can tell you it was really hard on the whole family. The whole family suffers. But
yeah. So you're asking about while he was suffering through this or after he passed?
Yeah, well, both. How are your daughters doing?
So they're doing pretty well now, but it's also been 4 years.
Yeah.
So some time has passed.
And they were younger than Seth, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things are still coming out.
Yeah.
I'm still just hearing about some things that really bothered them and how it impacted them. While he was going through all this, they were very scared. Very scared. They didn't, we would share things with them, but we specifically didn't want to share details. We didn't want to burden them with the problem of them feeling like they had to fix it. So it was a very strange dynamic. But they were scared and they knew a lot. And they, in that situation, there was yelling going on at home.
Yeah.
And you can't not hear that and not be impacted by it.
Yeah.
And since he's passed, it's been a process, a journey for them as well as us. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever feel 100% whole.
Yeah.
Time will tell. I'll never feel 100% whole.
Of course.
It's not natural, too. It's not the natural process.
No.
No, it's not.
I just saw my parents over the weekend, and, they're much older, but it's just, you're not supposed to outlive your children.
No, you're not.
And so I'm so sorry. I really appreciate you bravely talking about his story.
And I was going to say something too, is that the youngest one, they were really close. Like Seth was the big brother, the guardian angel, and so the cheerleader and that kind of stuff. And so my youngest really lost that big brother, that big bear, that cheerleader. So that was really hard.
Now, and it's always difficult to kind of navigate this because we are limited with so much time that we have. But I really want to talk about the foundation that you guys established in turning that pain into purpose and how that all began and what it looks like today.
So I'll start with that. So I think right after he passed, we wanted to do something. Like most parents, you want to do something, you don't know what, right? And
a lot of parents, too, to your credit, too, a lot of parents don't know what to do and then do nothing,
right,
which is understandable. I'm not being critical of that, but it's a difficult time.
Yeah.
And I want to commend you guys for being able to turn that into something that's really, really challenging.
Right. And so there were a couple people from a local not-for-profit that were helping with people in recovery for basically anything. And they were like, hey, we have a mission. We have the 501(c)(3). Do you want to just join us? I'm like, oh, okay. And then, nothing personal, but when I kind of Googled, their records, they were kind of lax about the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's not the best thing. And I remember I went to a synagogue for the Jewish holidays, and our rabbi was talking about education, and I think it kind of clicked. Seth, about a couple of weeks before he passed away, was like, Mom, Dad, I'm really tired of doing nothing. I know college really wasn't for me, but I really want to go. I wanted to become an electrician because some of his friends were doing that. We were kind of talking him about doing that. Maybe I'll start a community class again. We're like, okay, but you got to be clean. Okay, I'll get myself clean. And then like 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Yeah.
So the idea of the mission kind of came around the Jewish holidays. We did a little memorial walk, just kind of the family, because it was still in the heart of COVID. And, we were sitting there of, okay, what's the name? And, well, why not just Seth J. Memorial Foundation, right? Something very simple. So we had we had the name, we had the mission. My brother-in-law is an attorney, so he took care of all the legal work. And I think 6 months later, we got our 501(c)
Mhm.
IRS exemption. And long story short, welcome to the world of not-for-profit.
yeah.
Well, Henry, can you share with them, I don't know the exact number, but the
Yeah.
number of recipients we've awarded
So
scholarships to?
We've done, I would say, between 20 and to 25.
Wow.
And what do those look like?
Well, when we started, they were small, probably, $500, $750. We didn't have a lot of funds. And then
Mhm.
what we were noticing was we had a lot more donations than recipients.
Okay.
So recently,
Which is a good problem to
Yeah.
have in the beginning when you're getting started.
yes.
Right.
And now we've kind of go up to 1,000.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to say we do have a process. And because Seth was a very personal kid, we decided we don't want to be a checkbook, meaning that when we get an applicant, we make them write an essay. Usually it's about 4 sentences. Hi, my name
And I need
is
money.
whatever, and I did drugs, whatever. And I'm like, okay, can you give me a little more, right? And we also ask for a letter from a therapist or a sponsor. And then we do a Zoom call with them. And I think, the Zoom call is not to be personal. The Zoom call is not to pry, but it's to really, I think, cherish that connection that Seth had. And I think for most part, everybody that we've done that, I think they've appreciated it.
They
It
have.
makes it very
some-
personal. I would.
Right.
I've, of course, been to your website several times, but I also joined your Facebook group for the foundation. And I was reading some of the testimonies from some of your recipients. And there's one that's most recent up there. And the pride that it must be so gratifying, right? To know that your son's memory is helping other people. And
So I'm going to say yes and thank you. That's actually kind of funny because, scholarships are supposed to be anonymous, right? And, when you're in recovery, obviously your friends know you're in recovery, but you don't walk around wearing a big R on your chest saying I'm in recovery. And so we've never shared publicly who gets what. Right. And even if we get applicants from the same organization, we really try not to, even if they know the person, we really try to keep it anonymous. Right. So this one young lady happened to send a picture. We send every applicant we send every scholarship awardee either a t-shirt or a water bottle with the hope that, it's free advertising.
Yeah.
But just a little something to say like, hey, whatever. And this woman took a selfie wearing the shirt and said, it's because of them I can do that. And she said, please go ahead and share it because she shared it on her page.
Oh,
And
cool.
I was like, okay, do I have your permission to share? Yes. And I went ahead and did that. And I was really surprised because a lot of my friends were, wow, congratulations, man, you guys are rocking it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. No. This is not about me. This is supposed to be about them. And a couple of friends of mine texted me going, you need to do that more often. So the woman who you're talking about was almost a recent one who just got her commercial driver's license.
Oh, great.
She
wow.
actually invited us to her graduation, but I was like, that's for you and your family. That's not for us.
But we have had, it's interesting. We didn't know where we would, or the types of programs we would get requests for. And it's been really all over the map. Some of the requests are to become certified as a peer recovery coach. Some of them are actual 4-year college degrees. One gentleman wanted to become a truck driver and he needed a license. So I'm just mentioning that because we consider the whole breadth of education, not just the traditional 4-year college program.
Absolutely. And in honor of
Yeah.
your
But,
son, who was going to be an electrician. Yeah.
Exactly.
I really think that it's twofold. The breaking that anonymity, I think it's twofold. One, for the parents, for other parents to see that you can turn this pain into passion and maybe inspire them to try to do something. But also, I really think that it's important for people in recovery to be recognized. And I think it just takes it one step further of breaking the stigma, and as somebody who's been in a 12-step program, I recognize the value of the anonymity, but I also recognize the value in this climate of fentanyl poisonings, the need for us to be outspoken and to kind of put our faces out there to show that recovery is possible. So I really think it's great what you guys are doing as far as allowing people to share a testimony.
Thank you.
That's my 2 cents.
Thanks for sharing that, Kurt, because I agree. It's a double-edged sword, but
Yeah.
was beaming when I saw that post. I was like, wow, you guys are that's really worthwhile work that you're doing.
And as somebody who also works for a nonprofit, it's great for your donors to see this, and that's, we do that at Hope House where we have people, give their testimonies. And I think it's important for the people who are donating to see that their money is going to something that's changing people's lives.
Right.
Right.
And of course, the testimonies that I read on your website about Seth, so much was written about him. And he had a lot of friends and a lot of people that really love him and really cared about him.
So thank you. I'm going to add just something else. So something that I don't publish it on Facebook or Instagram, but I'm the one that typically writes up the letter to the person. Like, hey, and I try to make it big, right? Like, hey, congratulations. We're going to give you an award of X, in honor of all your hard work, whatever. The money, of course, goes directly to school, organization, whatever it is. There's been a couple of people that are really close to me, to our family, that I will actually put a little paragraph in their letter and say, hey, your scholarship is dedicated to someone that has passed away that was close to us. And I'll put a sentence or two in there and whatever. And I think it's kind of gone a long way.
That's beautiful work that you're doing. There must be a feeling of it must be a good feeling to be doing this for other people.
It is a good feeling. It's bittersweet too.
Of course.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because here we are giving scholarships to people and he can't even be here to get one.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how can people find out? Where do they go? What do they do? How do they apply for this?
So very easy. All they have to do is go to our website, SethJWinterMemorialFoundation.org. You click on the scholarship link, and there's 4 boxes. And basically, you submit you have to submit an essay, and there's a box for that. It takes you right to a Google form. And like I said before, we ask for a letter from either a therapist or a sponsor. We typically try not to contact them, or if we do, we keep the conversation very light. And then like I said before, we do a Zoom call with the applicant. And as Wendy said, we've had we had some 19-year-olds, some mid-20-year-olds. We had a 51-year-old male who, I have to admit, that was hard for me, because it wasn't like I was helping I don't want to use the word kid, but I was helping one of my peers. You know, and this is someone who could have easily been my buddy from college.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
probably one of the hardest ones that I've done so far.
It probably hits close to home, being the same, close in age or whatever.
Yeah.
Can only imagine. Yeah.
Wendy, I don't know if there's any one that we've spoken to that has really kind of hit home to you or made that kind of an impression.
I think we spoke to somebody a few months ago who was about the age Seth would have been.
Mm.
And that one was hard for me. I don't recall exactly what they were trying to get a degree in or do, but just that same age.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to also note too, I'm on the website right now, and for those that want to donate, there's a large donate button, and you can donate via Venmo.
Oh, yeah.
At Seth J. Winter Memorial Foundation. You can also donate via PayPal. You can send checks. So there's plenty of ways to get involved with this, and really such a great thing. I like you said, bittersweet, but just incredible what you guys have done.
And then what we do is every year, usually around the fall, we do a memorial walk.
Oh,
Yeah, I
great.
saw that.
Right. And because Seth loves shoes,
Oh, yeah.
we collect, because people have said, hey, can I make a donation? We didn't want these to be fundraisers, right? Official fundraisers. So we said, hey, if you want to donate something, bring a pair of gently used sneakers, shoes. And one year we collected 30, 40 pairs of shoes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And we try to pick various sober living homes, recovery centers in the Maryland area. And we just donate them. And we try to take pictures. We try to post it on the website.
That's great. That's a great idea.
So that's why we have on the logo a pair of sneakers.
I love the logo, and it has his initials on there, right?
Right. It was everything we did was very intentional, and yeah, so that's what it's about.
It's great work that you're doing. Amazing work, actually. Brave work, right? Kurt, it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
we
No, and like I said before, we've met so many parents, and just along my own journey, Father Frank, who founded Hope House, he always likes to say that we can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to do something, and you guys have done exactly that, and not buried your head in the sands, and really turned, as you said, your pain into purpose. And I'm sure that Seth is very proud and looks down upon you guys now. So
there's no doubt.
just want to. Yeah,
There's no doubt.
Really incredible stuff. And two, it's so all these other people that you have helped, who wouldn't have been able to if it wasn't for the position that you're in. So I think it's just a beautiful circle, bittersweet, but a beautiful circle nonetheless.
Thank you.
Well, I again, everything that Kurt said, because I think that both of you, having lost my brother, and I see what my parents, how it's been for them, I give you a lot of credit, because as Kurt said, not everyone can do this. It is very hard. I'm sure it's very, very difficult at times. And as I said, I was trying to, there's times that it's very rewarding, and it brings a lot more purpose and memory to your son. And I think, I think it's a wonderful thing what you're doing. So anyway, I want to thank you both again for being with us today. And I do hope that you can make it to the SAMHSA conference in Maryland with
Thank you.
Larry Lemondola. I sincerely thank everyone who supports our cause and understands how important it is to look out for each other and to empathize with anyone dealing with addiction. Let's continue to spread awareness about the dangers of illicit fentanyl and promote harm reduction tools like Narcan and fentanyl test strips. Reach out to us via Instagram at sbu.playitforward for more recommendations. We hope that our message reaches somebody. So for now and always, keep playing it forward.
Forward.
Thanks, Kurt. This is Allison of the Play It Forward Project. Tune into our next show in 2 weeks at 1 p.m. Again, Wendy and Henry Winter, thank you so much for your time and for the hard work and the mission that you are doing and breaking the stigma.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story and just talk.
Thank you. It was a pleasure spending time with you guys.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure. Yeah, thank you guys.
Same. And Love to your family.
Thank you.
So we have a closing song. It's a special one picked out by Wendy, and I'm going to give Wendy the honors to introduce it again.
Okay.
Tell us why it's important to you.
So the song is One Step at a Time by Jordin Sparks, and we have it on our site as well, because if you listen to the song, there's hope. There's hope that things will change.
Well, that was a perfect way to end our show. There's hope and love. Things can change. So our closing song is One Step at a Time by Jordin Sparks. Thank you, Wendy and Henry and Kurt, of course. You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3. I'm Allison of Play It Forward. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another. I would like to thank everyone that has been tuning in and listening to our show, Play It Forward. I am proud to say you just listened to our 50th episode. Kurt and I and the team are very grateful and appreciative for all the support from you all and for WUSB for giving us this platform, which is our mountaintop, as I call it, to educate and create more awareness for the fentanyl and opioid crisis that is plaguing our nation and is the #1 cause of death for people ages 18 to 45. We are incredibly passionate to this cause and will continue to fight legislation at the state and federal level and continue to bring stories of recovery and grief, which are so important to share and listen, because that is part of breaking the stigma. I want to give a big shout out to my amazing advocate friends and, of course, Tyrone Wizzy, our engineer who is always here for us, Kurt Hall, Carol Trottier, Lori Carbonero, Paulette Felipe, Claudia Frizzell, and all the amazing people that have been on our show to bravely share their stories, which we really hope inspires you all. I would like to give special thanks to our friend Larry Lemondola, who has been on our show a couple of times and recently spoke at SAMHSA's National Youth and Family Substance Use Conference. I would like to play a clip in closing and thank him for his kind words. We are fighting with you, Larry, and with you all. Please fight with us and keep tuning in. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another.
My daughter Lisa was born in 1994. 1994 was a year when hockey's New York Rangers won the Stanley Cup. The play-by-play announcer for the final game was Sam Rosen. Sam's final call when the clock hit 0, and the Rangers were victorious. This one will last a lifetime. The loss of my daughter, sadly, will last a lifetime for me, my family, and the families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl poisoning. Dear choir, I'm a glass half full guy. Before I conclude, I wish to provide you with a bit of homework. But before I get to that homework, I want to talk to you about my first love before I fell in love with my wife. My first love was radio. I've come full circle with this now. When I worked in radio, I was on the air as a disc jockey, WALK on Long Island. I worked at the RKO radio network for quite some time behind the scenes. I got to meet interesting people, famous people. I got to meet Reba McEntire. I lost her autograph. I don't know why I threw it away. What a dummy. What else? I got to go to a political convention. I got to see a president being sworn in. I got to see Sally Ride lift off from Cape Canaveral. Not many people get to do things like this. I felt blessed when I was in my 20s getting to do things like that. So here we are, full circle, your homework assignment. It would be in your best interest and the interest of those that you serve to listen to an ongoing radio program. I've been on it 2 times. This is my superstardom now, but this is not what I wanted. You know, I didn't really want to be here today. I would rather have Lisa back, quite frankly. But the name of the program is America Poison, the Play It Forward podcast. You're probably saying, how did you find out about this? I read the newspaper. Anybody still read the newspaper? It's a good idea to read the newspaper. I was reading Newsday one day, and I'm reading about this woman by the name of Allison Bancott McEntee. And she lost her brother. She started the nonprofit called the Play It Forward Project. And she started a radio program. I said, wow, I gotta be on this radio program. I gotta tell the story about Lisa. She gets people. Does anybody know Dr. Stephen Lloyd? I'm sure some of you know, he's a rock star. I got to meet this man. You've got to listen to this program. It's available on Spotify. It's available on YouTube. Spread the word. Maybe YouTube can be on this program one day with Allison. And her co-host is Kurt Hall. Kurt is in long-term recovery. He's magnificent. Always like talking to Kurt. Folks, I do what I do every day because Lisa is with me here. She is the wind beneath my wings. One more quote before I go. It's from former basketball player and former U.S. Senator Bill Bradley. I am in the optimism business. Stay optimistic, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.